I appreciate the notion of agency, that we're not bystanders in the world. It's decisions, not conditions, that determine our fate and future. And that fundamental notion of agency, I think, is important more broadly. And I think that goes to some of the issues around, victimization. And I see a lot of that, respectively, on the right, increasingly, even with Trump often approaching things from that sort of mindset.
What do you mean for Trump?
I think there's sort of the grievance.
What I saw.
Yeah.
What it looked to me like he was negotiating with a deaf prostitute.
The political pressure cooker just burst. Gavin Newsom didn't just respond, he blew up after Tyrus sparked a moment no one expected. What came next was raw outrage, rushed damage control, and a reaction so intense it could scorch a microphone. If you think political drama has peaked, think again. This one swerves, spins, and leaves everyone staring at their screens, asking one risky question. Stay right here for the wildest turn yet today.
Well, it's not his words when he speaks.
Yeah.
You have to watch him closely. And some genius decided not to film him any lower than the shoulder.
Yes, did you? Yes.
So what did he do?
You couldn't see the hands.
No, but he sent Morse code.
Yes.
Go back and watch it. Look at the blinking. Blink, look. Meet me at the house. Like, he's blinking. He's sending... I'm getting there. Hey, just so you know, I'm not wearing...
Before we go any further, hit that like button and subscribe, because you already know you don't want to miss this. The moment I didn't step into the room, it kicked the door off its hinges, dragged mud across the floor, and knocked over every carefully stacked talking point in its path. 1 second. The political theater was rolling along its usual script of polished smiles and recycled outrage.
Gavin Newsom he just all around sucks.
Yeah.
He's just... you gotta be good at something.
Yeah. You gotta be good at something.
You gotta,
What is, there's not one
the governor thing ain't his thing.
Yeah.
Telling the truth is tough. So maybe he was gonna be a good comedian, because that's what happens to a lot of people. Acting doesn't work out, then they go into politics, and he's like, hey, I'll be a comedian. Turns out, sucks at that too. So I don't know. Maybe try carpentry. I don't know. But
the very next moment, Tyrus dropped a verbal spotlight so powerful it short-circuited California's political weather system on live TV. And just like that, Gavin Newsom was no longer surfing the wave of his carefully polished image.
I want some of this, then you do some of this, and I'll do some of that back to you, and then we'll do this, and then I'll pay you, and then we'll do it again.
True.
And then she kept saying, no. Okay, how about this? You do this one first, then we do this one, then we give a little back and forth.
He was suddenly paddling against a tidal wave of exposure, reactions, and public pushback that flipped from polished to explosive in record time. The interesting part wasn't that uncomfortable details came out. That happens every day in modern politics.
Speaking of full of I'm sorry, I'm confused. He's still governor, right?
Yes.
Yeah. So he could do something about it. That's the most irritating thing, is like, why did anyone say with a follow-up where he's like, the homeless situation is ridiculous? Follow-up question, aren't you the governor?
Yeah.
Like, that's the difference. That's the difference between the radical left and President Trump. He'll talk about something as it's...
The real show was watching a man who lives on control lose his hold on the story just long enough to remind everyone what real irritation looks like once it slips past the PR filter. The blow-up wasn't subtle, it wasn't smooth. It was the kind of reaction that makes consultants spit out their coffee and hammer refresh on social media like traders during a market crash. What made it even more striking was the contrast. On one side, you had Tyrus moving with calm, almost laid-back confidence, like someone who knows the reaction will do half the job for him. The audience wasn't docile, and the timing couldn't have been worse. They were pulled straight into the spotlight, consequences were included. And once that happened, the usual trick of reshaping the story into something easier to swallow stopped working. Suddenly, people could see the cracks. Gavin Newsom's response rolled out in stages, like levels in a boss fight. First came denial dressed up as dismissal, the political version of swatting at a mosquito while insisting nothing's going on.
And then, look, he's blinking, and then eventually the camera guy realizing that he's signaling him, so he gets appalled, leans back, camera comes down, and then we're back to this. I'll do this for you. You do this for me a little. So he's saying whatever he's going to say. There it is. See, they couldn't hold him back. He's like, I'm not on film. Oh, I'm not. Nope. Nope. Oh, bring my hands up. Bring him up. Bring him up. Bring him up. Bring him up. He's playing with us. Meet me at my house. You get mine. I get yours. It'll work out.
Then came defensive justifications, with explanations stacking up faster than anyone could check them. And finally, there was that clear hint of irritation, the sharp edge that tells you the buttons weren't just pushed, they were smashed over and over. What really sent the moment spinning wasn't only what was said, but how quickly everything moved after. Clips bounced across platforms like loose pinballs. Supporters rushed to reframe the story. Critics sharpened their knives. But the internet had already made up its mind. This wasn't about calm clarification anymore. This was entertainment. It was watching the political machine trip over its own feet in real time. And then there was the body language. That slight shift in posture when control slips. The tightened jaw. The eyes scanning just a bit too hard. Analysts didn't need inside sources. It was all there, in the stance, the pacing, and in how the response felt less like leadership and more like pure damage control.
But his hand gestures matched the words coming out of his mouth.
Right. Yes,
if the president was like, we want peace in the Middle East, you know what I'm saying? You would be like,
right,
and like,
That's it. That it is. It's the contrast.
yeah, like Gavin, his hands are aggressive. You know,
Yeah.
we've had a lot of theories. One, it was a bad negotiation with a deaf hooker. You know, now he doesn't want to pay for, you know.
Do you have a problem with deaf hookers?
He does, because the deal.
It's always an interesting day when a polished political pro gets pushed out of script mode and into reaction mode. Script mode is comfortable. It's rehearsed. It's where words are carefully chosen to please focus groups and avoid upsetting donors on both coasts. Reaction mode is different. That's where instinct shows up without makeup, and instinct, when irritated, almost never looks good. Tyrus didn't need to throw a punch. The exposure worked like a pressure release valve. Years of storytelling, branding, and political choreography suddenly had to improvise under heat. Reaction channels doubled their output. Everyone jumped in. Supporters rushed forward with loyalty that looked like emergency triage. They explained, added context, reframed, and reassured everyone that this didn't mean what it clearly looked like. Opponents didn't pause for analysis. They celebrated, stacking digital receipts like trophies on a virtual shelf. And hanging over all of it was Newsom's reaction itself, still echoing through the cycle. Every new defense only made the original outburst feel louder by comparison.
5 days later, 99%, no one's crossed. They're standing at the border like, you go. No, that, you go. Like, no one wants to go. Newsom goes down there and says, oh, there's a problem. This is what we saw this in New York when he put, what's his name of that, Blasio, the guy you really hate?
Yeah, Bill de Blasio.
He put his wife in charge of the homeless, and there's $50 million still missing?
Yeah.
So this is another one of the left's money schemes where the guy who's in charge is saying, we need help, we need to figure out a way to do this. So they're gonna make a committee. They already have bubonic plague in California. I remember Dr. Drew was going, there's bubonic plague back in California.
It's one of the harsh realities of modern media. Once an emotional reaction is out there, every attempt to smooth it over just reminds people that it happened in the first place. The irony? Political figures spend their whole careers trying to look unshakable. Yet the moments people remember most are the ones where they visibly crack. Strategists debate whether to double down or pivot. The social media team refreshes notifications so fast their screens could overheat. Somewhere, a crisis memo is being drafted, redrafted, and drafted again at the speed of regret. But the internet doesn't wait for memos. While the pros were calculating, the crowd reacted instantly. Memes popped up within minutes because satire smells panic like sharks smell blood. Edited clips slowed down key moments. Background music was added. Facial expressions were frozen into screenshots that would outlive any official statement. And then came the follow-ups, because once a reaction escapes containment, it invites questions, and questions invite scrutiny.
So we need to rethink everything, because the one thing about dementia or getting older, that the real you comes out. Mm-hmm. There's no more filters, the little Jiminy Cricket in your shoulder that says, don't say that, he died. So now it's just unfiltered. Mm-hmm. So now we have to go back. I think Corn Pop got a bad rap.
Yes.
Pretty sure Corn Pop's name was Cornelius.
Yes.
And Joe was trying to tell him how cool his hair is when it gets wet.
Scrutiny digs up other moments, other statements, and other decisions that suddenly feel fresh and relevant. What started as a single exposure turns into a doorway to a bigger conversation, one few people in power ever welcome. The most revealing part wasn't what Newsom said next, it was the shift in tone. The sharp edges softened a bit, but not enough to erase the sting. For years, Newsom has been a master at staying on offense, shaping the conversation before critics can fully line up their arguments. But when exposure flips that dynamic, even for a moment, the adjustment can look awkward. Muscles trained for performance suddenly have to absorb real impact. And impact is exactly what the audience came for. Whether they leaned left, right, or just leaned back with popcorn, they felt it immediately. This wasn't a scripted clash. This was raw, unscripted friction, and unscripted friction carries an energy no rehearsed speech can ever match.
I'm not paying money for that. I'll do it myself. So, you know.
A little bit of bubble.
Could you imagine if you were the sign person for the TV going...
You know what's interesting about him? I have maintained that Gavin Newsom has the easiest job of all politicians because California is a beautiful state.
Yeah.
At its baseline, people will stay there for the weather and the scenic elements. So they'll put up with anything, and they'll put up even with a governor who does.
Tyrus, for his part, didn't need to push further. The spark had already lit up the room. In fact, the calmer he looked compared to the eruption, the more obvious the imbalance became. It created that uneasy tension that makes people squirm without really knowing why. One side moved like a steady metronome, the other thumped like a drum in a marching band that missed practice. The ironic part, in a darkly humorous way, was how predictable the aftermath became once the shock faded. Trending tags surged and dropped like shifting weather fronts. Think pieces popped up overnight. Suddenly, everyone was an expert on tone, timing, and temperament. But some moments stick in collective memory, not for their size, but for the raw emotion they reveal. This felt like one of those moments. Strategically, the eruption probably cost more than it gained. Outrage rarely convinces skeptics or comforts the undecided. But it does something else, something worse. It exposes pressure.
I will not bring my kids back to my neighborhood because I don't feel like walking through, as you affectionately call, hobos, drug addicts and pedophiles and criminals who hide there because it's a great place to hide and commit crimes. So he could do something. He doesn't want to do something. He's just saying to see if American people are stupid enough to fall for his.
Yeah, you know what we used to call, gotta move on.
And once pressure becomes visible, critics stop attacking the argument, they target the stability behind it. In the days that followed, the drama was quieter but more revealing. Subtle shifts in messaging, small recalibrations in emphasis, and a quiet step back from rhetorical hills that suddenly felt too exposed. None of it was announced as a course correction, but the changes were there for anyone paying attention. The comparison machine, of course, went into overdrive. At the heart of it all is a simple truth rarely admitted in polished political talk. Power doesn't like being questioned in public. It tolerates critique in controlled settings. It tolerates opposition in structured debates. But exposure, especially when it hits viewers emotionally, feels like a personal intrusion. And personal intrusions provoke personal reactions. Newsom's eruption wasn't just about what was said, it was about the breach. The invisible wall between a curated image and unpredictable reality cracked just enough for people to peek inside. And once people see behind the curtain, they rarely forget.
No, he would not do that. He would not do that because that's just straight up honest racism. That's no. That's
Remember, he did that. He did that.
He
about
would do it in
Indians.
a way where he would tell a story about the founding fathers and how they built this country so when immigrants could come from India and build 7-Elevens.
Yes, so that's what he would do.
And hand him Slurpees in the summertime.
Yes.
Overpriced, of course. That's how he'll do it. And he'll say, and then he'll tell Vivek.
In the long run, the machine will probably absorb this moment the same way it handles most things, through time, distraction, and a steady stream of new controversies. But in the short term, the impact is clear. The conversation shifted, the posture changed, and the confidence took a visible hit. For viewers, it became less about who was right and more about who looked rattled. And in the court of public opinion, looking rattled often carries a heavier penalty than being wrong. In the weeks to come, the eruption will show up in clips, offhand jokes, and quick references. it will become shorthand for a tense confrontation. Most people will simply remember the feeling of watching composure break and irritation take over in real time. No matter how many words come after, that first crack is what sticks. And somewhere deep inside the political machine, the lesson will quietly be noted.
Be lying and I can't do that. Well, since you can't lie, what tequila were you nursing while the Pacific Palisades burned? And what was it like banging your campaign manager's wife? Of course, he's just waiting for us to forget that his state looks like an overturned porta potty.
So what their problem is not that what he says is that anyone from any walk of life understands his message.
And that's scary.
And that is sucked.
Not announced, not acknowledged, but I noticed. Exposure doesn't always have to be loud to land. Sometimes it just needs to trigger the right reaction. Here, the reaction spoke for itself. It showed the pressure was real, that the moment mattered, and that the balance between image and reality could wobble just enough for everyone to see. The irony is that politics is built on performance, yet the moments that stick the most are almost always the unscripted ones. Because in the end, this wasn't just one exposure or one eruption. It was a reminder the audience never tires of. Behind every polished speech and curated persona is a human reaction, waiting for the wrong moment to slip out. And when it does, no message can fully put it back in the bottle. Once that reaction is out, it becomes a reference point, a quiet tick on the timeline that commentators will return to anytime composure comes up again.
And then look at the audience and be like, what?
Yeah.
What did I say here? No one likes him and his family. Because at some point, if you had any love from anybody, they'd be enough. If he was a boxer, you hug him, you put the towel over his head and be like, we're going home, man.
Yeah.
We're going home. We're done here. But
Yeah.
he couldn't even read LL.
Yeah.
Can I add something very quickly here? Obviously, Newsom is jockeying for presidential position because he has agreed to debate Ron DeSantis on this network.
Yes.
Every future display of calm will be measured against that flash of irritation. Every carefully crafted statement will carry a faint echo of that earlier outburst, like a hairline crack under a fresh coat of paint. The audience will, of course, move on to the next spectacle. The news cycle always demands fresh drama, but memory sticks in odd ways. It doesn't cling to facts or figures, it clings to moments. The contrast between the polished image meant to dominate and the reaction that briefly broke through. That contrast sharpens over time, becoming a quiet benchmark that never fully fades. Long after the headlines have moved on, the clip will keep circulating in corners of the internet, resurfacing whenever pressure meets power again. Because that's the true aftershock of a moment like this. Not the immediate noise, but the lasting reminder that control, no matter how carefully built, is always one unexpected spark away from slipping.